But like I said, we're talking 1813. Actually, the school didn't even open until after Jefferson was already, like, not president anymore, I think. Hang on a second. Okay. Was the Lancastrian school that opened in Washington, D.C. in 1812, 3 years after Jefferson left the presidency and returned to Virginia. So Thomas Jefferson had nada to do with this school. Oh, wait, he's getting to the University of Virginia here. The hell with the rest of this stuff. Okay. Well, this is good. Right before getting into the University of Virginia, Barton's got this kind of paragraph, a little conclusion of all these other schools that he mentioned leading up to the University of Virginia. And he says, in short, Jefferson was involved with many educational endeavors prior to establishing the University of Virginia in 1819. And in none of them was there any attempt to exclude religious instruction. To the contrary, in each case he took intentional steps to include or preserve it. So, the examples that Barton gave, though, Geneva Academy was really a science college faculty. What was the other one? With the Washington, D.C. public schools, where it's a report from a school that wasn't even opened until 3 years after Jefferson no longer even had anything to do with the Washington public schools. We are now getting to the University of Virginia, finally. And Barton begins, 3 distinctive features characterized universities founded in America prior to Jefferson's University of Virginia. Those universities, 1, were founded and controlled by one particular denomination, 2, housed theological seminaries for training ministers for that specific denomination, and 3, had prominent ministers from that denomination serving as president of the university. He talks about Harvard and William and Mary, and of course, as I said, when Jefferson was governor of Virginia, he made William and Mary not a religious school anymore. Okay, here we go. Departing from this pattern, Jefferson and his Board of Visitors specifically founded the University of Virginia to be America's first trans-denominational school. A school not affiliated with one specific denomination, but rather one that would train students from all denominations. This is the core of the lie about the University of Virginia, was that Jefferson wasn't founding a secular university, he was founding a university where there would be seminaries and religious instruction and this and that. It just wouldn't be a specific denomination. That is not true. There was no religion at the University of Virginia while Jefferson was there. Only a couple of things when Madison took over after Jefferson's death. Couple of things that started when Madison was there, but interestingly, what Madison allowed, such as a student-led religious group, are exactly what is now allowed in public schools because of various Supreme Court decisions. So Madison, in like the early 1830s, when these things happened, the religious student clubs, and on the same basis as the debating society and other clubs at the university, is exactly what's allowed in today's public schools. So Madison had it right in the 1830s. It's what eventually was decided, 40 years ago, whenever, by the Supreme Court for the current schools. But many today wrongly misinterpret Jefferson's denominational non-preferentialism to be secularism. And they also erroneously point to what Jefferson did with his own alma mater's professor of divinity as another alleged proof of his commitment to religion-free education, but getting rid of the, let's see what Barton has to say about this. Actually, this is the first time he's addressed this with the William and Mary. Okay, in 1779, when Jefferson became governor of Virginia, he was placed on the board of William and Mary. At that time, he introduced legislation to recast the school, an accomplishment known as the Jefferson reorganization, did Jefferson indeed propose to abolish the School of Theology with its professorships of religion? Apparently so, for Jefferson himself acknowledged, "I effected during my residence in Williamsburg last year a change in the organization of that institution by abolishing the 2 professorships of divinity." So it appears that Professor Levy was right. Is Barton being honest here? Hang on, wait. So it appears that Professor Levy was right, that Jefferson did seek to secularize higher education. At least it appears that way until one reads the rest of Jefferson's explanation, and then it becomes evident that his intention was exactly the opposite. Jefferson explained, "The College of William and Mary was an establishment purely of the Church of England. The visitors were required to be all of that church, the professors to subscribe its 39 articles, and its students to learn its catechism. And one of its fundamental objects was declared to be to raise up ministers for that church. The religious jealousies, therefore, of all the dissenters took alarm lest this might give an ascendancy to the Anglican sect. Jefferson abolished the School of Divinity because it was solely an arm of the state-established Anglican Church, and he wanted it to be able. So here we go. Okay, Jefferson abolished the secularized William and Mary, again because the claim that people like Barton make that he wanted to be a non-denominational, still Christian, but non-denominational school. Okay. Further evidence that his reorganization of the college was not secular was his stipulation that, quote, "the said professors shall likewise appoint from time to time a missionary of approved veracity to the several tribes of Indians." Okay, he's talking about the Braffington Institute. I gotta find this in my book. Okay, I was close. It was the Brafferton. Brafferton Fellowship, or Brafferton Professorship at William and Mary is what Barton's referring to there as proof that Jefferson didn't secularize William and Mary. In my book, I have used the version of this. All these revisionist books contain some versions of basically the same lies. In my book, I quoted the one from Gary DeMar's America's Christian History, The Untold Story. And he had said, "Jefferson advocated the tax-supported College of William and Mary maintain a perpetual mission among the Indian tribes, which included the instruction of the principles of Christianity." Okay, so that's what Barton's talking about here. Okay, this is what I wrote. "Jefferson did not advocate a mission to instruct the Indians in the principles of Christianity. He was stuck with it because it was written into the charter of the college. What Jefferson proposed was to turn this into an anthropological rather than a religious mission. The mission, called the Brafferton Professorship, was established with a private donation from the will of English scientist Robert Boyle. The funding was provided by the rental of Brafferton, an estate in England purchased by the executors of Boyle's will. The 1693 Charter of William and Mary had specified that the college was to train young Indian boys in the Anglican religion to become missionaries to their people, and in 1697 the income from the Brafferton estate was earmarked for this purpose. The Indian school at the college was a failure from the start. The biggest problem was that the Indians didn't want to send their children to a white school. In fact, the school's first 6 students were actually boys who were purchased from enemy tribes that had captured them. Although the college's charter called for 20 Indian students at a time, in 1721 there were none at all. Nevertheless, the Brafferton building was built in 1723 as a permanent home for the school, which struggled along for the next 50 years. The last Indian student was admitted in 1775. There is no evidence that any student who attended the school ever became a Christian missionary. I think I quote some stuff from Benjamin Franklin that's actually pretty funny, but too long to read. Okay. In 1779, Thomas Jefferson became both governor of Virginia and a member of William and Mary's Board of Visitors. He immediately set to work on reorganizing the college, with the goal of turning it into a non-sectarian state university. The main problem Jefferson faced was that the Board of Visitors did not have the authority to make changes that required amending the college's constitution, something that could only be done by the legislature. Jefferson did propose the changes he wanted to make in his bill for amending the Constitution of the College of William and Mary and substituting more certain revenues for its support, but this bill was never acted on. Among the changes that the Board of Visitors could not make was to increase the number of professors. They could, however, change what each professor taught. So Thomas Jefferson had a loophole. William and Mary's Constitution limited the number of professorships to 5 plus the Brafferton. At the time that Jefferson joined the board, the college had a divinity school with 2 professors teaching theology and what Jefferson called Oriental languages, meaning Hebrew and Aramaic. There was also a professor of Latin and Greek. Jefferson got rid of all 3 of these and replaced them with professorships of law and police, anatomy, and medicine. Okay, so yeah, Jefferson didn't secularize the university. He just replaced all the theological professors with professors of law, anatomy, and medicine, and modern languages. While the purpose of the Brafferton professorship could not be changed completely, Jefferson's idea was to take advantage of it to study the Indians' culture and languages. Jefferson was really interested in studying Indian languages and the origins of languages in general, so this wasn't surprising at all. Okay, the phrases that DeMar takes out of context, okay, same stuff that Barton's using, basically. To create his lie come from Jefferson's notes on the state of Virginia. DeMar omits the part of the sentence in which Jefferson explained his plan for the Brafferton professorship, and also the part where he made a point of noting that instruction in Christianity as part of this position could not be eliminated because it was required by its founder. So yeah, Jefferson is stuck with this because it's in the charter. He can't change the charter. He's stuck with it. He has to work around it. And this is how he worked around it, okay? This is what Jefferson wrote. The purposes of the Brafferton institution will be better answered by maintaining a perpetual mission among the Indian tribes, the object of which, besides instructing them in the principles of Christianity as the founder requires, should be to collect their traditions, laws, customs, languages, and other circumstances which might lead to a discovery of their relation with one another or descent from other nations. When these objects are accomplished with one tribe, the missionary might pass on to another. So, no, the missionary wasn't going to move on once he had converted the Indians. The missionary was going to move on once they had gathered enough anthropological language and other information about the Indian tribe. Okay, that's the end of the Jefferson quote, and we're back to what I wrote. In addition to providing an opportunity to learn about the Indians, Jefferson's idea of sending the Brafferton professor among them would remove the Indian school from the grounds of William and Mary, getting rid of the only remaining religious school at the college, which that's what it did. The school, which hadn't had a student, the last student was admitted in 1775, so the Brafferton building at William and Mary would no longer be being used as a religious school.